The once was a place of a mystical land. Now let me tell you a story of your life, waiting to break free. Let the story begin, let the secrets flow, what you're really missing from the other side. Let the secrets of stories begin, never before.
It's a 100% true story that happened to a woman in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, there was this woman named Sherry who moved into this house with her two children in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, she said, at the time, she didn't believe in anything supernatural. She really thought that was a bunch of nonsense. But she said, right away when they moved in, she would notice, out of the corner of her eye, sometimes shadows moving across the walls. She would hear strange noises that she couldn't explain. But she said, for the most part, it was just a normal house. One night, she's upstairs in her bedroom and she's folding laundry. She hears talking coming from her son's room. So she makes her way over to his room. The door's closed, and she hears her son having a full-on conversation with someone. And she's like, "Who is he talking to? At 12:30 at night?" So she opens the door, and when she looks in his room, he is not in his bed. So she starts yelling for him. She looks down and sees him next to the side of his bed, on his knees, crouched down, with his head under the bed, talking to someone. And she's like, "Hey, who are you talking to? Like, who's under there?" And her son's like, I can't tell you. And she said, "What do you mean you can't tell me? Like, who's under the bed?" And he's like, "I can't say. He'll get mad." And she's like, "What? Who's under there?" So she runs over to the bed and she looks underneath there. It's empty. There's nothing under there. So she's like, "You know what? Just get back in bed. Like, just stop, doing whatever you're doing." Several weeks pass, and like on a regular basis, she keeps finding her son talking to someone under the bed, except there's no one there. So, after a few weeks of this happening, she thinks maybe something is wrong with her son. So, she takes him to this child therapist. The therapist like assesses him and says, he seems completely fine. It's probably just his imagination. So several months pass and he keeps on doing this. Well, one day she's sitting down in the living room with him and they're talking when she notices he has some scratches and bruises like all over his body. And she's like, "Where did you get those scratches and bruises from? Like, what's going on?" And he's like, "I can't say, I can't tell you." And she's like, "Yes, you have to tell me, like, what is going on with you?" And finally he breaks down and he starts crying and stuff and he just starts freaking out. And then he runs up to his room. So the mom, at this time is like, I don't know what to do. Like, what is going on with my son? Like, she's just panicking. Later that night, she's awoken to her son screaming in his bedroom. She runs as fast as she can. She goes in his room. She finds him halfway underneath the bed. He's grabbing onto the bed frame, and it looks like something is pulling him under the bed. So she immediately grabs him, pulls him out from under the bed. She looks under there. There's no one there. So she's like, "You know what? This is weird. Like, you're sleeping with me tonight. You're going to be in bed with me tonight." So they go back to her bedroom. He lays down. He falls asleep. She's sitting in bed. She can't sleep. She's like freaked out about this whole situation. When all of a sudden she hears, "Shh, hey, come under the bed." And she's like, "What?" She looks over. Her son is sleeping. But then once again she hears, "Hey, come here under the bed. I need to talk to you." And it's like a man's voice. And she's like, "No, no, who are you? Like, go away." And the man's like, "Come on, get under the bed. I need to tell you something." And like, she's like, "No, I'm not going under the bed." And she said this man, whoever he was, just started yelling obscenities and getting really angry. So she grabs her son. They get out of the house, and she said she left that night and never went back. And still to this day, that house sits there. And she said she's talked to the neighbors, and they said since she's moved, like several families have lived there. The most terrifying hiking trail in the United States is located in Tennessee, in the Appalachia, a place called the Norton Creek Trail. Now, the Norton Creek Trail is about an hour from Knoxville, Tennessee, and probably about 20 minutes from Gatlinburg. Now, this trail goes through the Smoky Mountain National Park, and this area has the highest concentration of old pioneer cemeteries and abandoned homesteads that you can actually visit. This area is known for ghostly apparitions, orbs, people disappearing. There is a famous story about a pioneer settler who went looking for his missing daughter on this trail and actually was found unalived. Now, the creepiest legend, though, in this area is that of Spearfinger. Now, Spearfinger is this old Cherokee legend that there is this witch who they described as being sometimes 40 feet tall, having skin like rocks, and this long, sharp finger that is shaped like a spear. And the creepy thing about Spearfinger is that she could shapeshift. She could be anyone, your auntie, your cousin, your best friend. And she could be walking right behind you. You turn around and she sticks her long spear finger into your back, rips out your liver, and eats it. Now, this story comes from this same general area. There was this woman who said when she was a young girl, her and her brothers and sisters, they lived in this small shack in the Appalachian Mountains. And she said, they were very poor. So this house was, not that big. They all shared a bedroom. And they said their father had to leave them alone for a couple days. So their auntie came to stay with them. So they said, one night they're hanging out with their auntie and they're joking, they're having a good time. When all of the sudden, they said the air just got stale and they could feel almost like a cold breeze blowing into the house. And they said the dogs started to freak out and bark and go crazy like someone was outside. So the auntie got really, really nervous and really scared. She takes the kids and they all go up into this attic where the father had made kind of like a safe area for them to hide if anything were to ever happen. So they're all sitting up in the attic and there's, this tiny little hole that they can see down into, the downstairs. And they said all of a sudden the door opened up and they said in walked this little old lady. And they said she just kind of, was touching everything around their house. And she said all of a sudden, this old woman started saying, "Come out, children, come out. I got something for you. Come down here. I want to tell you a story." And she started, acting like she was this concerning old woman who wanted to give the kids, stories and candy. And so the kids started to say to the auntie, like, "Can we go down there? Can we see her? Can we see her?" And she's, "Quiet, quiet, just be quiet." And the more they resisted, the more this woman was like, "Come down here, kids. Come down here. I got something for you. Like, I have some toys." And, they're like, "Oh my goodness, we don't have no toys. Like, we should go down there. We should go down there." And the auntie's like, no, fighting with them, saying like, "You have to stay up here in the attic." And so they said all of a sudden, the woman kind of disappeared out of sight. And as they're looking down this little hole, they said the next thing they knew, a finger popped up through the hole and started, moving around. And she said the auntie and the kids are all scared because they're seeing like this finger just coming up through the hole. And they said the finger started to grow and grow, and it became almost like this long, sharp spear. And they said it started to move around the attic, and they had to like avoid it because it was almost hitting them. And the auntie just started saying these prayers like over and over again. And they said all of a sudden it was like boom, like they had woken up from a dream. This old woman was gone. The air seemed normal. And so the auntie brings them down from the attic. And she said the next day, when her auntie went outside, all of their animals that they had out there were like mutilated, torn apart. And she said to this day, she is afraid to go out. My grandma always used to tell me that nothing good happens between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m. She would say, those are the devil hours. Do not go out during that time. And I always tell people if you don't believe any of this stuff, right, go out after midnight into the woods alone and then tell me what you think. Now, many years ago when I was younger, I had just gotten out of the military and I was kind of adjusting to this regular civilian life. Now, one of the things that helped me is I got into doing outdoor survival. Now, I used to do these 4 to 5 mile backpacking hikes where I would go out sometimes 12:30, 1 o'clock at night and hike in the woods. This particular area that I would hike was along the river. It was like this hill, and it was just this heavily wooded area. Now, at the time, right, this area was known to be home to the Peoria Indians. And this is where they hunted, this is where they lived. There's even believed to be this huge burial ground on this area that was never found. So, this particular night, I decided to hike this trail called the Pimatui. Now, the Pimatui was an old Native American trail they used to use to get down this hill to the river. So what I would do is I would hike this trail and I would get to this specific spot where there was a stream that cut through the trail. I would then turn right and I would follow this stream through a ravine down to the river. So as I'm hiking the Pimatui Trail, I come to the stream, I turn right, and I start following along down this ravine. I start hearing like music, and it sounded like someone was singing, but it wasn't like a person, it was like one of those old music boxes. And as I kept on walking further and further, like it got a little louder and then a little louder. And that's when I get to the specific spot of this stream where it kind of makes a curve. And there's this sharp ravine with 2 steep sides on both sides. And I remember hearing this music like coming from the side of this cliff. And I'm like, what is making that music? Like, where is that coming from? And that's when I see like this opening on the side of the ravine. And, it was probably about this wide. You could, barely crawl through it. And it was some kind of cave or something. So I hiked up to the top of this hill and I started shining my light into this cave. As I look in there, I see the movement of something very large. And I don't exactly know what it was. I can't explain to you what it looked like. But it caused me to like jump back. And at the time I'm thinking, okay, if this is some kind of wild animal, I'm blocking its only exit. So I started making my way back up the ravine and heading away from there. And as I'm walking, I notice like all this movement up ahead in the woods. And I see several deer just booking it through the woods like something had just scared it. And I could hear from behind me some movement coming up through the woods, and there were like branches breaking, and you could hear the crunch of something hitting the leaves. I go a little faster now because I'm kind of nervous. I'm like, what is following me? As I'm continuing up the ravine, it starts getting closer and closer, and it got to the point where I knew that it was very, very close. So I pull my camera out and I take a picture with the flash on. And when that flash hit, I could see 2 glowing eyes staring at me. So I threw my bag down and I just take off running as fast as I can. I get to the trail, I get out of there. And whatever this was, it broke off and didn't follow me. Later that night, I'm looking at this picture and you could clearly see the 2 eyes. And I'm like, whoa, something was following me, whatever was in that cave. The next day, I hiked back out to this area because I wanted to find this cave again. Except I could not find it anywhere. And I went all the way along that ravine down to the river There was no cave. And I still, to this day, have no idea what happened that night or what was following. Understand that when you go into the Appalachian Mountains, you are entering into another realm. And there is a set of unspoken rules that you must follow. Rule number 1, if you hear something calling your name, right, you didn't. There is nothing there. And you should not respond. Do not say hello. Do not say, who is it? Just run away. Because something is trying to gain permission. And by you acknowledging it, you are allowing it to come after you. If you hear screams in the mountains, right, you didn't. And do not go towards the direction of the screams to try and help. Because once again, something is trying to lure you. If you see people, you don't. If you hear crying, you're not hearing it. Do not respond to this at all because you are giving permission to whatever is in those woods to come after you. Now, if you are to go camping in the Appalachian Mountains, right, you have to remember, at night, you must keep a fire going at all times. And it's not for warmth, it's not for cooking, it's to keep you safe. And if you are going to camp in a tent, make sure when you go into that tent, it is sealed up. There are no holes, there are no cracks. And if you hear any kind of screaming, yelling, or anyone calling your name, do not respond. Do not go to sleep. And if something wakes you up, stay alert, and once again, do not respond. Now, it's very important when you are walking through the Appalachian Mountains, if you come across a deer carcass, do not touch it, do not stare at it, walk away, ignore it, because this is something, once again, trying to lure you into the woods. Now, if it comes to the point that something is chasing you and it gets you and there is no escape, fight as hard as you can, whether it's a person, an animal. If it's something else though, and you know what I'm talking about, well, you just let it get you, right? Because at that point, there's nothing you can do. And there's an old saying, you go into the Appalachian Mountains with 2 bullets, right? You fire the first one at something that isn't a person, that isn't an animal. And if it doesn't run away, you know what to do with the second. What would happen if you followed a mimic? Now, I've always wondered this, because you hear these stories of someone hearing like their mother knocking at the door or telling them to come in the kitchen. But what would happen if you actually listened to the mimic? Here's a story that might tell you why you should not follow a mimic. There was this young man named Aiden. Now, Aiden lived with his grandfather and his 2 parents. Now, one day, Aiden was hanging out in his bedroom and he's playing a game. Well, he hears his parents like pull in and he looks out the window and sees them getting out of the car, unloading some groceries into the house. So he's like, awesome, man, we're gonna have something to eat. So he goes back to his game and then he hears his mother say, Aiden, come in the kitchen, I got some food. And he, at this time was like in the middle of a battle. So he's like, hold on, Mom, I'll be there shortly, I'm in the middle of a battle. And she goes, come on, Aiden, hurry up, come in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, he said he got a phone call, and it was from his mom. And he's like, why is she calling me when she's in the kitchen? So he picks it up, and his mom's like, hey, honey, we're at the grocery store. Do you want us to get you anything? And he goes, what do you mean you're at the grocery store? You already got groceries. You're in the kitchen. She goes, what are you talking about? We just got to the grocery store. And he looks out the window and sees that their car is not there. And then right at this moment, he hears his mom saying, you better get in the kitchen right now or you're going to be in trouble. You better come eat. And he's like, I got to call you back, Mom. He hangs up. So he goes and he locks his door and then he calls his mom right back and is like, look, when you get home, call me. I'll help you bring in the groceries. So about 25, 30 minutes later, his mom calls him and she's like, honey, we're home. Come outside. And he said he was getting ready to go out of his room, but he looked out his window first and their car wasn't there. So he's like, you know what? I don't know what to do because I don't know who really is my mom right now. So as he's sitting in his bedroom, right, he hears his parents come home and come into the house. And all of a sudden his mom comes up to his door and starts knocking. And she goes, Aiden, let me in. And he's like, not right now, Mom. And she goes, what are you talking about? Let me in. Unlock this door. Why do you have the door locked? And he's like, no, I'm not opening the door. And his mom goes, all right, I'll just get the key and unlock it. So he grabs like this baseball bat that's chilling in his room, and he's prepared for this thing to come in. And like at the time, he still thinks whatever, was calling his name in the kitchen, this is them. So he sees the handle jiggle and the door open, and it's really his mom. And he can tell that it is actually his real mom. And she goes, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, nothing. And he sets the bat down. And she's like, you're acting weird and stuff. And there's food in the fridge if you're hungry. So he didn't know what to make of that. Like, what did he just experience? And he didn't feel like he could tell his parents about it. So he decided to talk to his grandpa, who was kind of like his best friend at the time. So he goes to his grandpa's room, and he's like, Grandpa, he's like, have you ever seen something like you can't explain? And he goes, what do you mean? And he tells the story about like how he thought his mom and dad had came home, he's seen their car and everything, but it wasn't actually them. And the grandpa goes, oh no. And he goes, what's wrong, Grandpa? And he says, well, when I was a young boy, I grew up in a small Polish village near Warsaw. And he said, we had this term that was this long Polish word, but it roughly translated into evil twin. And he said they believed there were these evil spirits that could take the form of anyone and would try and trick you and lure you, out into the woods. So his grandpa said, when I was a young boy, my father had me chopping wood outside. And I hear my grandma's voice coming from the forest. And she's saying, come in the woods. I baked you a pie. Like, come out here. It's nice and warm. Like, you'll like this pie. And he said, he was so hungry, like he almost started to go out into the woods until his father ran and grabbed him and said, get back in the house. And his father locked the door and said, if you hear someone calling you from the woods, don't ever go. Don't respond. So he said, when you encounter an evil twin, as they called it, they will follow you for the rest of your life. And he feared that maybe this thing had followed him here to America. And this is what Aiden had seen. A couple weeks later, his parents are gone, and it's just him and his grandpa. And they're watching this World War II documentary in the living room. Well, all of a sudden, the wind picked up, and a strong breeze pushes the back kitchen door open, and they hear it, open up. So his grandpa's like, I'll go and close the door real quick, and I better lock it so it doesn't blow open again. So his grandpa goes into the kitchen, but after about 10, 15 minutes, he doesn't come back. So Aiden's like, Grandpa, are you all right? He goes into the kitchen, the back door's still open, and he doesn't see his grandpa. He goes throughout the house, he's yelling his name, he doesn't see him anywhere. So he goes out, to the back door, and he's yelling his grandpa's name, he doesn't hear it. So he calls up his parents, and his parents come home immediately, and they call the police, and they do this big search throughout the neighborhood and into the woods. And they end up finding his grandfather in the middle of the woods. He is completely naked. He is confused and doesn't know who he is, doesn't know anything, doesn't remember anything. So they bring him back home and everything. Well, Aiden said that, they chalked this up to dementia and said he was diagnosed with a severe case of dementia. But Aiden, in his mind, suspected, because of the series of events that happened before this and his grandfather going out to the kitchen when the door opened, that this was the evil twin thing that his grandfather had talked about. And he said, although his grandfather had completely lost his memory, from time to time, he would say to Aiden, is my brother outside? Is my brother out there? And he couldn't figure out why, his grandfather would keep saying that. And then he realized maybe this thing appeared as his brother, and it lured him into the woods. This girl named Lyra. Now, Lyra was from Kansas City, and she said when she was a teenager, she used to live in this house. And at night, when she would come back from her friends, or she would come back from somewhere, she always had to drive past this cemetery. And she said something about it just always freaked her out. So every time she would have to pass it, she said she would just keep her head turned away from it. Well, this particular night, she was coming back from a friend's house, and it was about 10:30 at night. As she's driving down the road where the cemetery is, for some reason, she decided to look over at the cemetery. And she said when she did, she seen this man just standing next to a tombstone. So she hurried up, put on the gas, and just sped past the cemetery. She turns down a couple streets, and she said all of a sudden this overwhelming stench filled her car, and she said it smelled like rotten meat. And at that second, she turns around and she said in her back seat, there was a man sitting there. And she said he had on this black fedora, black suit and tie, and his face looked like it was decomposing. So she didn't know what to do. She's like panicking. So she just drives as fast as she can to her house, jumps out of the car, and makes her way towards the door. She looks back. This man gets out of the car and starts following her. She goes inside the house. She's screaming, crying. She tells her mom and dad, like, there's this man following me. And they're like, what are you talking about? What man? And all of a sudden, she sees the man come inside the house. Now, the parents are like, what man are you talking about? Like, they don't see this guy. But, like, she can see him clear as day standing by the doorway. So she takes off running into her bedroom. She closes the door, gets on her bed. All of a sudden, she hears footsteps coming to her door. And then her door opens. And there is the man. And he walks into her bedroom and goes around to the side of her bed and just stands there. Now, she doesn't know what to do because her parents can't see this. Like, she is freaking out. So she just puts the blanket over her head. And she hopes, maybe he'll just, go away. So after a couple hours, she thinks, maybe he's gone. She pulls the covers back down. She looks around her room and she thinks, oh, he's gone. But when she looks at her desk, she sees him laying across the desk. And so she grabs over to her, coffee table on her table on the side of the bed and grabs like this trinket that her aunt gave her. And she starts reciting this prayer that she remembered. And she said all of a sudden, this guy got up and just walked out of the house and left. So what do you think? What did she encounter?
Thank you for watching the Magical Arabian Nights of Stories unfolded today. Thank you for watching the secrets flow tonight. Flow tonight.